Welcome back to our study of the book of Proverbs. We are in Proverbs 15 today, where we run into the topic of speech. Speech is a major topic that is woven throughout the book of Proverbs, and today we're going to focus on it. Now, this is especially important today because it's so easy to speak to multitudes of people whom we don't even know. It used to be that if you wanted to speak to more than one or two people at a time, you had to gather a crowd. And if you couldn't gather a crowd, you had to find some way to get yourself on radio or on TV. And even then, you had to be interesting enough to gather listeners. But today, each and every one of us, through social media, are able to communicate with people all over the world in large groups. Anyone who reads what we write or videos that we post, or for that matter, podcasts that we publish. And people all over the world are able to read and respond and comment on the things that we say. And early on, proponents of social media said this was going to democratize the world because every voice would be heard, and this was going to be humanity coming together to solve the world's problems. And today, more and more people are saying social media, the ability for everyone to speak to everyone all at once, is tearing the world apart, and it's become a source and an engine of anger and outrage rather than peace and harmony. This, of course, shouldn't surprise us as Christians because we believe that in the total depravity of mankind, not that we're as bad as possible, but that we are corrupted in all of our parts, and that humanity finds a way to corrupt even very good things. And so in our ability to communicate around the world, we have corrupted that and used it instead to foster arguments and outrage and anger. This has led to a situation where even among Christians, we think that the way to be heard above the noise is to shout louder and to be more angry than everyone else. We have seen it even in the political sphere that what we want are people who swear and who speak crassly because that's what gets heard. That's what cuts through the noise. But the Bible tells us that we as Christians ought to be different. And that's our topic today. Read with me Proverbs chapter 15, verses 1 to 4. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouths of fools pour out folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. That's as far as we're going today. As we look at this, we find gentle, soft speech commended. A soft answer, a gentle tongue. This is commended to us as the speech of the wise. This is commended as the speech of the godly, the righteous, those who love the Lord. The gentle tongue does not compromise the truth. This isn't saying that we bend the truth or that we refuse to speak the truth because it might upset someone, but rather this is speaking about how we proclaim the truth. You'll notice it says the tongue of the wise commends knowledge. We are meant to proclaim what is true. We are meant to speak what is true. And as God's people, we cannot be those who deal in lies or half-truths. We must be those who deal in the truth. But this tells us that as we speak the truth, we need to take care that we are gentle. There are some who blast others with the truth in a harsh and belligerent manner. This stirs up wrath. But that's not helpful or useful. That's not a tongue that gives life. The tongue that is a tree of life is the gentle tongue, the person who speaks gently. Now, if speaking with gentleness doesn't mean that we compromise the truth, what does it mean? Well, to be gentle simply means to handle others with care. It means that you take into account not just what you want to get into the other person's brain, communicating information as loudly and as bluntly as possible, but you also take care of their heart. You take care of their whole person. Am I speaking to this person in a way that will build up and bless, or am I speaking to this person in a way that will tear down and destroy? Am I considering not only this person's intellect, but their emotions? Am I considering them as whole persons and not merely disembodied brains? Am I trying to win a war? Or am I trying to help another person whom I love? Gentleness is about treating other people with kindness and love. And remember, our God is the one who is merciful and kind to the righteous and the unrighteous, and we are called to love even our enemies. And so we as Christians are called to learn to speak with gentleness. Now, this is a fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5. Galatians 5 lays out the fruits of the Spirit, the things that God is producing in the life of a Christian. He says in 5:22-23, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And so we see there that gentleness is one of the fruits of the Spirit. This is a mark of spiritual maturity and of godliness. There are some people who have taught at times and who have thought at times that gentleness is a feminine trait. And among those who are not Christians in classical times, it was taught that gentleness was a feminine trait. But what we see in the Bible is that it is not a feminine trait. It is a Christian trait for men and women who are pursuing spiritual maturity. Those who are spiritually mature are growing in gentleness. We're reminded in the New Testament as well that as we speak the truth, we must do so in love. And so Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, talking about putting on the new self, says, rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. As we grow in spiritual maturity, one of the marks of spiritual maturity is that we speak the truth in love. Notice, speaking the truth is not love. There are some who verbally attack, verbally abuse, verbally destroy. And they simply say, well, I'm speaking the truth and that is love. But notice here, he says, speak the truth in love. He doesn't say speaking the truth is love. It is possible to speak the truth and to not have love as you do so. It is possible to delight in tearing down another person. It's possible to speak the truth, but in a manner that is gossip, that delights in spreading bad news about another person and in slandering them. It is entirely possible to speak the truth in a way that lacks love. We are called as Christians to speak the truth in a loving manner. And that loving manner includes being gentle. Without love, even our truth speaking is worthless. Remember what is said in 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Without love, our speech is just noise. And more belligerent speech and more angry speech is not different. I mean, we might rally our own troops, right, with our angry, belligerent speech, but we're not cutting through the noise because that's more of the same. It is speech with love that is useful to the Lord. It's speech with love that cuts through the noise. Without love, even if I prophesy, my speech is a noisy cymbal and a clanging gong. It's worthless. And so we are called to speak with love. In Proverbs, we are called to answer people softly, gently. What are the results of this? We are told in Proverbs 15, verse 1, that a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. How often have we gotten defensive and responded harshly to someone only to see the situation escalate? This happens in our marriages. One person maybe snaps, maybe is a little tired, maybe just thoughtlessly responds, and the other person gets angry and responds to that first person in a harsh manner. And that first person then responds back in a harsh manner, and the situation escalates and a huge fight erupts. How much different if one person responds with gentleness. The anger may not vanish immediately and the fight may not end right then and there, but a gentle answer keeps it from escalating. A gentle answer does eventually turn away wrath. It keeps it from becoming worse. Meanwhile, a harsh word stirs up anger. Imagine if in our times of stress and conflict we were disciplined enough to respond gently and softly to one another. This would be a matter of our tone, attempting to deal gently with another in our tone and not be biting or just angry in our tone. It would be a matter of our words. What words do we choose? Different words convey different nuances. And so to say that someone is aggressive is different than to say someone is assertive. And so if we are to be gentle, we take into account, what am I saying? What am I meaning? Am I communicating in a soft way? Imagine if we took care to do that when we disagreed with individuals in the workplace, with individuals at school, or even with our family members, how differently our arguments would go if we were careful to speak gently. Imagine how differently all of our public discourse would be if at the very least we as Christians disciplined ourselves to respond gently to those who are angry. And this is hard. When people are angry at us, we get angry and defensive in return. It requires discipline, self-control, which, by the way, is another fruit of the Spirit. It requires self-control to restrain our tongues and to respond to people with gentleness. It's something supernatural. And so it requires that we be praying, that we be spending time with the Lord, that we be growing in spiritual maturity so that we have self-control. And that self-control enables us to be gentle to other people in our speech, to be soft in our answers. Now, another benefit of gentle speech, aside from turning away wrath, is that the tongue of the wise commends knowledge. If you ever tried to beat someone into agreeing with you, and I mean that verbally, in an argument, you go for the jugular. I used to do this. And in fact, I don't think I'll ever forget one time I was speaking with a man who he believed false doctrine. He claimed to be a prophet, and by every biblical measure of the word, he was a false prophet. And he was sitting in my car, and we were talking, and I pulled out the scriptures, and he claimed that he was a true Christian, that no one else outside of his little group was. And I went to read him a verse of the Bible, and he looked over and goes, "Oh, what translation is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's the NIV." He said, "Oh, that's your problem." And I knew he was a King James only man. And so I looked at him, I said, "Oh, you don't like translations." And so I pulled out my Greek New Testament, flopped it open. He looked over at me, his eyes got big, he said, "What's that?" And I said, "It's the Greek New Testament. You don't like translations." He said, "I don't read Greek," and got out of my car. Now, at the time, I thought that was funny. But looking back, I lost my opportunity to persuade him because I went for the jugular. I went to win the argument rather than to persuade. And as good as it felt, I didn't persuade the man. The lips of the wise, the tongue of the wise commends knowledge. It's not about trying to win as if we're on debate teams and we're just sort of, bantering back and forth about information. The tongue of the wise actually adorns knowledge, makes it attractive. I know that there are times I have listened to various teachers and I want them to be right. And I have to look at the Bible and go, this guy, he's so kind and well-spoken and gentle that I want him to be right, but I just don't think he is. And then there are other times when I've had to be disciplined and go, this guy is a jerk, but what he's saying is correct and I need to learn, and it takes discipline to learn. Well, how much better if being spiritually mature and seeking to be among the wise, we speak the truth in a way that makes it attractive. So we're diligent that what we're speaking is true, but we also speak with gentleness and persuasiveness in such a way that people want us to be correct. Even if they eventually don't agree with us, they want to agree with us. That's how the wise speak. It's not a belligerent, harsh speech, but it's the kind of speech that is full of reason and goodness and gentleness and that is persuasive. The tongue of the wise commends or adorns knowledge, makes it attractive. And then we're told that the tongue of the wise is a tree of life. A gentle tongue is the tree of life. It builds other people up rather than tearing them down. A gentle tongue ends arguments. It takes away anger, and so it can bring about healing and restoration. A gentle tongue makes knowledge attractive, and so it can actually persuade people to believe the truth. A gentle tongue does good for others. It's not about satisfying our own desires. It's not about winning. A gentle tongue seeks to be a blessing to others, building them up rather than tearing them down. The tongue of the wise answers people gently, softly, and is marked by love. That's what we're told here, and that's what we're told in the New Testament. And we are exhorted to remember that gentleness is a Christian trait for men and women. And it's a mark of spiritual maturity. It's not a mark of cowardice. It's not a mark of weakness. It is a Christian trait that we are meant to pursue. Now, that of course brings the question, can this work? If we are gentle in our speech, if we are gentle with other people, will we get anything done? Will this actually work in an angry and belligerent world where those who shout the loudest get the largest audience? Can gentleness work? And many people would say, well, no, gentleness doesn't work. That's why in these matters that are so important, you just need to stop being gentle and let people have it. Well, I remind you of Proverbs 15, verse 3. Right in the middle of what we've read today. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. So, a soft answer turns away wrath. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge. A gentle answer is a tree of life. And right there in the middle, the Lord keeps watch on the righteous and the wicked. We're reminded the Lord is everywhere present. The Lord is the one who stands in heaven and is sovereign over all things. The Lord is the one who works. And yes, gentleness sometimes does not turn away wrath. That's a general truth, but sometimes people are determined to be angry. Gentleness is sometimes ignored. But what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to do the Lord's work or our own work? Are we trying to honor the Lord or build up something else? If our goals are worldly, then worldly ways will work. But if our goal is to honor the Lord, then we must do things in the Lord's way. And the Lord's way is that we speak and respond to people with gentleness, with love and kindness, even as we speak the truth. And the reality is that the Lord is the one who upholds the moral order. And so even if we should suffer for doing what is right, as Peter says in 1 Peter, we are blessed because we stand with the Lord, and he is the one who knows how to reward the righteous and punish the wicked. And he is the one who at the end, when he comes, will judge every word and every deed. And he is the one who knows those people who are his, who have believed in the name of Jesus Christ and who have repented of their sins and trusted in him. And he is the one who will reward us for how we live our lives as Christians. And so, if our goal is to honor and please the Lord, then gentleness is a non-negotiable. It's a must for us. It should be our general way of life. And we should be known for our gentleness and not for being a harsh people, not for being an angry people. And so I encourage each of you, as God's people, to pursue gentleness in your speech. Pursue gentleness in how you speak to people, your tones. Pursue gentleness in the words that you use. We can be firm. We can be firm and yet be kind. We can at times make our case forcefully in some ways by marshaling the absolute best arguments possible and yet delivering them with respect and with gentleness. It is entirely possible, for example, to say something like, Jesus is the only way to salvation, because that's what the Bible says. And if you want to be saved, you must believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. And to say that without anger, to say that with gentleness, even as you're firm, to say that without being harsh, in such a way that it is pleasing and honoring to the Lord. So pursue gentleness. How do we do this? 1, pray. ask the Lord to help you grow in gentleness. And along with gentleness, ask the Lord to help you grow in self-control. To be gentle in our speech requires self-control. It requires restraint, because oftentimes, especially if we feel attacked, what we want to do is to fight back. It's our instinct. And so pray for restraint and pray for the ability to be gentle. And then discipline yourself to pause before you speak, particularly when you're angry. Pause. And this is all the more easy when you are communicating electronically, because you're able to read what you have just written. Pause. Read what you've written. Think through what you want to say. Perhaps ask another person how to respond and how your intended response comes across. But stop and give thought to your words. Ask yourself questions like, how would I respond if someone spoke to me this way? What is my purpose and my goal? Is my goal to simply defend myself? Is my goal to win an argument? Or is my goal to build this other person up, to accomplish something that is good? Evaluate what it is that you intend to accomplish. And then perhaps as you evaluate, you'll realize, I just need to be silent. Or perhaps you'll realize, my goal is this. My response will actually accomplish this over here. And so I need to adjust how I respond, how I deliver it, what words I use. Perhaps I just need to wait a little bit longer. But discipline yourself to have self-control so that you may respond to people gently, even as you speak the truth. That's the exhortation of Proverbs 15, verses 1 to 4. I'll see you next week.